Chapter 20, Mishnah 7. Mats made of reeds were sometimes used for sleeping on and sometimes used as roofing, e.g. for a sukkah. Mats used for sleeping are subject to tumas midras, but mats used for roofing cannot become tameh at all. This Mishnah discusses one particular type of mat. It was rectangular and made from soft reeds woven together. A few hard reeds were inserted in the mat to strengthen the weave. However, the hard reeds were uncomfortable to lie on, and they were therefore inserted along the width of the mat at intervals, so that a person could lie between them. The Mishnah will deal with various ways in which these mats can be made, and will discuss whether each type of mat can become tameh. If a mat was made by someone with the hard reeds along its length instead of along its width, as is normally done, the mat is tahor, since the hard reeds are along the length. A person cannot lie on the mat comfortably. The mat is suitable only to be used as roofing and thus cannot become tameh. The sages disagree, but the sages say the mat is tahor only if someone places the hard reeds in the form of the Greek letter ki, the shape of a U. However, if the reeds are all along the length of the mat can become tameh because a person can lie along the length of the mat between the reeds. If the reeds are positioned in the form of a key, though, one cannot lie on the mat at all, and thus it cannot become tameh. If someone inserted the hard reeds along the width of the mat, but there is less than 4 tefachim between one reed and the next, the mat is tahor. Since a person cannot sleep in such a narrow area, the mat is not meant for sleeping on and cannot become tameh. The mats discussed here were prevented from unraveling by tying the soft reeds into knots along the narrower ends of the mat. The Mishnah discusses cases where a mat is damaged so that these knots will not prevent it from unraveling. If the mat split along its width, Rabbi Yehuda rules it tahor. This is because the edges of each of the broken pieces are no longer reinforced by knots, and the weave of each piece will soon unravel. Because of this, the pieces are not considered functional Keilim and cannot become tameh. And similarly, if someone untied the knots at the edges of the mat, it is tahor because the weave of the mat will unravel. Therefore, it is no longer a kli that can become tameh. If the mat split along its length, and each piece of the mat was left with 3 knots at its ends that together measure 6 tefachim, the broken pieces can become tameh. Since the pieces have knots on both ends, they will not unravel, and since each piece is 6 tefachim wide, it is large enough to lie on. Therefore, it is subject to midras. A new kli cannot become tameh until it is completed, as we learned in chapter 12, Mishnah 6. The Mishnah explains when a newly manufactured mat is considered completed and thus subject to tuma. From when can a mat become tameh? From when its reeds are trimmed, so that the surface of the mat is smooth and suitable for sleeping on. And this trimming is the completion of the mat's manufacture. Even if its maker intends to do more work on the mat, once it is trimmed, it can be used and thus is considered complete.